I'm going to go ahead and get us started if y'all are okay with that.
Sure.
And I'll just keep letting people in as they join. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming today. We are excited to have this great workshop with Laura and Courtney today. Before we get started, I'm going to do our land acknowledgement, and then I'm going to throw it over to Courtney and Laura. I'm currently working in Austin, and as such, I'm on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Cherokee, and Sana people. Our ongoing colonial presence on Indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the Texas Children in Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. Courtney and Laura, take it away.
Okay, well, I guess while a few more people pop in, hopefully, I'll just give you a little background of how Laura and I started working in this area. We're both professors at Trinity University, and Laura's been there a long time.
I'm starting my 27th year next year. So yeah, I've been there a long time.
And I think I'm starting my 11th or 12th. But we're both in teacher education. And one thing that we have seen and has been a big concern of ours is that our educators are leaving the field. They're burning out. And one of the things that, I mean, while we try to do system changes, that's very slow. And so we can't make it automatically less stressful for our teachers, but we started to really try and look at what can we do to help them best manage their stress and regulate themselves in a way that when we know this profession is going to get very stressful, what are some things that we can do to help them better manage their work and themselves in this process. And so that's where we really started to look at the idea of integrating healing elements of nature into what began with our graduate students who were going into the field. And so from there, we've really started to integrate it into our research and our courses. So in the fall, we have our first undergrad course starting, which we're very excited about. That's going to be 50% nature-based, where we'll have the students out every other week or so in different nature areas or green spaces around the San Antonio area. So in this process over the past couple of years, as we've developed this, we've both completed training with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy and are certified forest therapy guides. So we're going to be guiding you through a series of invitations over the next 2 hours or so. That's why I said it might be easier to start with phones so that you have a little bit mobility, but that's totally up to you how you decide to engage with this. To give you some background of the land where we are, the first peoples in this area included the Lipan Apache, the Comanche, and the Tonkawa tribes. The land in this area is very rich. The tribes were drawn to the waters of the San Antonio River and the Salado Creek, and they established communities all along the river, obviously well before the Spanish arrived into what then eventually became San Antonio. To give you a little background on forest therapy, we never know how much people know coming in. You may know a lot of this, you may not. So for those who are new to it, we wanted to share a little bit about the history of forest bathing walks. So this idea began in Japan really in the 1980s. And this is when the Japanese were transitioning to a very tech-based economy. And that meant that people were spending a lot more time inside. And the government noticed that they were actually having a huge spike in cancer and autoimmune disease with their people. So they began several research projects to figure out how they could best combat this epidemic that they were seeing in their country. And one project asked a very simple question, and that is, what happens when human beings are exposed to forest environments? So one thing the researchers discovered is that trees keep themselves healthy by showering themselves in chemicals called phytoncides. And so when a tree is attacked by either a fungus or some type of other organism, the tree diffuses these phytoncides into the air, and they seek out and kill whatever the attacking fungus is. So the really cool thing is that humans have a very special relationships to the phytoncides. when we inhale phytoncides or absorb them through our skin, our bodies produce a special white blood cell. And this is called a natural killer or an NK cell. You'll see it in the research just as an NK cell. So NK cells roam the body and they look for cancer and they destroy it. So the Japanese thought this was pretty incredible. And that just by simply going into the forest, this could be considered a preventative treatment for many serious diseases. This is why they call it forest bathing, or in Japan, Shinrin-Yoku, because we're bathing literally in these phytoncides right now if you're sitting outside. And I think currently Japan has more than 60 forest bathing trails that they have developed, and they use this as part of their systematic medical practice with their people. In the last decade or so, research on the benefits of nature have increased. And I realize with this group, we're probably preaching to the choir. You guys are aware of this. A recent review of research in 2017, led by faculty at the University of Washington, found that nature exposure improves mood and cognitive function and possibly self-regulation. So there are a lot of these things that we keyed into, that this was going to be very helpful for our teachers out in the field, but then also for our students that we work with in the undergraduate programs. So our own research at Trinity has found, when we work with our students, significant increase in mood and reductions in areas such as tension, anxiety, and rumination. The rumination was particularly important to us because so many of our students leave campus not because they intellectually can't handle the material, but because of the depression and the anxiety. And rumination is directly linked to that depression. So that was something that was a really important find for us. There are several mechanisms and theories around what causes these benefits. These include attention restoration theory, biophilia, and stress reduction theory. And we're happy to share more about these later at the end of the walk if you're interested. Our work is not to determine which one is the right one, because we really don't care. we're aware that something's working, so that's where we're coming from. But we're happy to talk about those theoretical underpinnings if you'd like at the end of our session.
So forest therapy walks are about slowing down and connecting with nature, or what we like to call the more than human world. It's not a hike where the goal is to get from here to there. And it's not a nature walk where you learn about different plants or animals. You can participate in a forest therapy walk in a park, in a green space, in your backyard, or even indoors with some plants. So how this works is that we'll provide a series of invitations. We call them invitations intentionally. They're not exercises or activities, and there are no grades, and you can't do them right or wrong, okay? The whole point is to simply relax and be here in the moment. If we offer you an invitation and it doesn't feel right for you, just feel free to adapt and modify it so it works for you where you are right now. So during this walk, we're going to introduce you to the practice, which usually takes place over 3 hours, which Courtney mentioned. And we want to emphasize, this is a practice. The more you do it, the more you get the benefits. It's not kind of a one and done thing. We'd also like to share that the first time experiencing a forest therapy walk, some people don't connect with this, and that's okay. I was more uncomfortable than Courtney the first time we engaged in a forest therapy walk with a certified trainer a few years ago. So it's okay if you feel unsure about all of this. It's the process of actually stopping and slowing down and experiencing the different feelings that's important. We want to just get out of our heads and into our bodies as we pay attention through our senses to the nature around us. So we have a lot of people zooming in from different places, and we ask that you be cognizant of the hazards that might be in your particular area. In general, tree roots, poisonous plants, any dangerous animals, just depending on the space that you're in. Courtney and I are hosting this walk from my backyard. We did that to make sure we had internet connection and stable, but it also backs up to a nature trail. So hopefully you can hear some of the birds or things that are in our space. So after you receive an invitation, feel free to turn off your video and mute yourself, and then just tuck your phone away until you hear us call you back with the Tibetan singing bowl. Let me play that so you'll know what it sounds like. Okay, so when you hear that sound, that's going to call us back from the invitation. All right. You'll know that the invitation's over, and we'll come back to a virtual sharing circle, which is going to be our Zoom room. And when we return to that, we will share a couple of words about what we noticed during that invitation in the chat. Okay. Because we're too large to speak all at once. Courtney or I will read these, what you share in the chat when you put that in, but we won't read your names aloud. So we really invite you to be open to this experience. It may be very different for you. It was very different for me the first time I experienced it. Give it a try and just be here in the moment. Okay. So we're going to start with our first invitation. This is called Pleasures of Presence. To start, I invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze, whatever feels comfortable to you. Now take a few breaths in and out and notice what it feels like. Notice the rhythm of inhaling and exhaling that feels most natural to you. If you're standing, notice what it feels like to be standing. If you're sitting, notice what it feels like to be sitting. Perhaps shift your weight from one foot or one side of your body to the other, from your heels to your toes. Now imagine you are rooted to this spot, and your roots are sinking down into the earth. What are your roots encountering beneath you? What other beings have stood on this land and in this space? I wonder what it feels like rooted into the earth to be meeting in this place at this moment in your body. Now open your hands and hold your palms out in front of you. Imagine yourself holding the air. Notice the sensations on your palms. Gently move your hands through the air. What does the air feel like running through your fingers? Now bring your palms together. What does it feel like when your fingers touch one another? If you're comfortable, you might want to bend down and touch the earth. Even pick something up, some soil or grass. What textures do you feel? Shifting our attention to the nose, how does the air smell? If you pick something up, what does it smell like? Where might that scent be coming from? Where has it traveled before, reaching you in this space? Now pretend you're sipping in air through a straw. What does the air here taste like? Shifting our attention to the ears, I wonder what sounds are here. What sounds are the loudest? What sound is the softest? Is there any rhythm or melody to the sounds? With your eyes still closed, slowly turn in a circle or look around you if you're seated. Notice what the different directions feel like as you turn. Now notice which direction your body is drawn to, and just stop there. Without thinking, let your body find its place. Not yet, but in a moment, I'll invite you to open your eyes. And I want you to do so like you're seeing what's in front of you for the first time. Now, when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Look all around you, noticing what's above and below you. Now take a few more breaths in and out. And we'll come back together. For our sharing circle, we invite you to put 1 or 2 words in the chat that describe what you are noticing right now. What are you noticing right now?
And I'm just going to read these as some of them come in so that you don't have to read in the chat. All the sounds around me. Stillness. Peace. Lightness. A living web. Movement of water. Calmness, calm, my heartbeat, calming feelings. My breath is slower. Okay, I see a pause in the responses, so I'm going to guess everyone who has chosen to has contributed what they're noticing right now coming out of that first invitation. Again, this is getting us into our senses and noticing all the aspects of the senses throughout our body. So our next invitation, we're going to move straight into that. And in our regular lives, it's very easy to move through our days, our spaces, and our tasks very quickly, which can increase our stress or maybe cause us to miss many of the wonderful things that are around us. This next invitation asks you to slow down and to just silently explore the land and space. And it's called noticing what or who is in motion. And we're doing this as we share nature's pace, which means that we're going to move very slowly. And if at any time you feel the urge to rush or that you're moving too quickly, simply stop for a moment and pause before you continue. I encourage you to use all of your open senses to notice motion all around you. In your slow wander, look up and down in all the different directions as you're noticing motion in the biggest and maybe the tiniest ways. We will be silently joining the land at its gentle pace for about the next 10 minutes. You don't need to keep track of time. We'll call you back with the singing bowl again when it's time to pause wherever you are. You can just stop and we'll pause and share. So yeah, so go ahead and you can turn off your video if you would like, and we will call you back in 10 minutes while you wander about and look for what's in motion. Okay, so that's video itself. That's our signal to come on back. And if you're with your phone and you've wandered off, just pause wherever you are. And so we're doing our virtual sharing circle, which is again a little bit different than an in-person sharing circle. But with this, I'd like to invite you to put a few words in the chat simply about what are you noticing. And if you'd like, you're welcome to unmute. We have a small enough group. If you'd like to unmute and tell us what it is that you're noticing, you're free to do that as well. Or if you're more comfortable, you can definitely put it in the chat and I will read it, or Laura will read it as they pop in. I noticed that there were very small insects hovering just under the tree canopy away from the birds. Lots of ones that were just hovering and buzzing up in there. Cool breeze blowing.
Things move in harmony. The wind flowing through the trees and rustling the flowers as well. Bees humming around, birds feeding their babies, new growth everywhere. Dogs walking. I noticed the gray clouds, the sounds of the leaves with the light breeze, the different green colors. For our next invitation, we'd like you to wander about and use your sense of touch to explore the textures of the natural world around you. Be curious. You might already think you know what something feels like until you've touched it. But I wonder how many different textures you can find. Bring one texture back to share with the group later on, a texture that you were curious about. I'll call us back together with a singing bowl in about 10 minutes. So wander about and explore the textures around you. So as we come back together, I'll invite you to turn on your video and maybe show us, if you feel comfortable, what texture you found, a texture that you found. If you don't, you can either show us, or if you may put it in the chat. I was going to show you, I don't know if you can see this. This is in my backyard. There's like a lot of these little tiny white mushrooms, toadstools. What are these? What do you think? Anyway, they're very mushrooms. They're very cute, very delicate. And I have never seen small ones like this. And I would have just walked right over them and not noticed them today.
I brought two back. It's hard to see. One of the first ones is the end of a cedar branch, and these look like they would be like soft and smooth, but they've got these really fine little stickers on them that are really, really sharp and feel very different when you rub one way versus feeling the texture the other way. And the other thing I brought, Laura may not appreciate me plucking leaves off her plants, but I brought this one, and it was off a bush, and it's trying to find my video. It's a bright, really beautiful red color, but on the back it just feels like velvet. It's so soft and completely feels different on the back side of it. So those were two of the things that I brought back. And you're welcome just to unmic and share, or you can start putting things into the chat. I do see some things coming in the chat. Worm casting crumbles and smooth pill bugs.
Hayden, I'm going to share. Oh, Hayden, we can't hear you, but go ahead.
A really soft green moss that's growing on the, I'm not quite sure what direction, but it's on the same direction on all the different trees, and it's really, it's like a velvet almost. I'll show it to you again.
Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else want to unmute and show us your texture that you found?
We're also putting in the chat tendril on a vine that's springy, the soft of the sage plant.
Normally, if we were together in our sharing circle, we would each place our texture that we brought back in a circle so that we could all see it and refer to it later on. Linda said the moisture in the soil. Anyone else like to share your texture?
Hi, Laura. Mine was simple. It was just this little leaf and just the intricate little edges around it, and just feeling that something so simple that I probably walked by 100 times.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie Lynn.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to our next invitation. This one's just simply called colors. And so remembering that light allows us to find color in our world. And I wonder how you see colors. Explore your area and see what kinds of colors the more than human world is sharing with you today. And I'll call us back together with the sound of the singing bowl in about 10 minutes. And for this one, you're welcome to bring it back and show us, or as how Hayden did it, you can take us to it if you would like, or you can simply, respond with words. So when we come back together, we'll share out in whichever way you choose. But right now you're exploring your area to see what kinds of colors the more than human world is sharing with you today. We'll do this for about 10 minutes. All right, so that's our bell to come back to our virtual sharing circle. And as you come back, you can either share with your video. You're welcome to turn on your video and show us your response to the prompt when we get there, or you're welcome to type it in the chat, but would love to hear from all of you that feel comfortable sharing in some way. So for our sharing circle, the question is for you to talk about what you were noticing, and go ahead and start. I'm going to use Laura's camera, I think, because hers is a little brighter than mine, but there's a whole bush of these really wonderful leaves that some are totally green, some are totally white, and then you've got these others that have the shared combination of white and green. And even within the green, I don't know if you can see it, but there's these beautiful different splotches of shades of green that are in there. And I thought that was just a fabulous way to see some different colors.
I took a small rose off of a rose bush, and what I was noticing was not just the pink color, but the colors, I don't know if you can see this very well, the colors that where it's starting to wilt a little bit, how the colors are kind of going into a really pretty orange while they're shrinking in a little bit. Just the difference in the colors.
Right, so in the chat, we have just how many various shades are found on the same plant.
Vibrancy.
And again, you're welcome to open your video and your mic if you want to show us your color, or you can just share it in the text.
Amanda noticed the same thing I did. I was outside. I was just looking at all the greens and the browns in my yard as I was walking around, and then 2 cardinals and just the vibrancy of the red, that it was that unexpected little gift that just kind of came out, and then they, you know, flittered and didn't stay very long, but it was like, oh, that little pop of red and all amongst all the green.
Yeah, that's what Amanda also put in the chat. If you don't have your chat open, the red cardinals against the green and browns of the trees.
And Diana shared shades of green. Yeah, similar to what Courtney said, all the various shades.
What I was drawn to was just within all the greens and the browns was this spiderwort, and I'll show you right now. Can you see that?
Oh, beautiful, yes.
Sorry.
It just really stands out amongst all the greens and the browns, and really, I'm sure is attractive as a pollinator. So there are not many left, but they're really beautiful.
Thank you for sharing, Hayden. All right, we're going to move on to our last invitation. And this one is very simple. Just wander out and let your body find a place to sit. And notice what is around you using all of your senses. Give yourself permission to do nothing as you're immersed in your surroundings. We'll call you back with the singing bowl in about 15 minutes. So we'll come back together to our sharing circle. And I'll invite you to either unmute and share or put in the chat a few words or sentences about what you are noticing from that sit spot invitation. Laurie Joe says, my page and my heart are full.
So I can show you my page if I can figure this out. I've come inside because it's hot, but
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Journaling is such a wonderful thing to do at a sit spot. Sounds and scents. The breeze lets me smell the jasmine. Lovely. I feel connected to myself and this place. Would anyone else like to share? Relaxed. The peace of stillness in nature. I feel peaceful and ready to work in my garden. Centered and grounded. Grateful, thankful, blessed, and calm. A wonderful way to begin summer vacation. Thank you. Present in the moment. All right, we're going to move on now to our last segment. I'm going to turn my camera around. I'm going to turn my camera around and hopefully you can see, Courtney, you can guide me how I need to do this. Tell me what you can see.
You can see my leg.
Not the goal.
Actually, do you want to sit it here and aim it down?
Let me see.
So aim down, down, down. That looks pretty good. Yeah.
It's not bad.
You
Here
still
we
see
go.
my leg, but that's okay. I'm recovering from knee surgery, so I'm not, I can't sit with my legs crossed just yet. So as we begin this last segment, we're going to be concluding with a tea ceremony. And as we center in for this tea ceremony, I'm actually going to start us off with a poem that I'm going to read. It's by Mary Oliver, When I Am Among the Trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locusts, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I'm so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The light flows from their branches. And they call again. It's simple, they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. So what we would like for you to do, if you feel comfortable, is to go ahead and turn on your video now, since this is our final sharing circle. But if you prefer not to, or if your batteries are low, that's completely fine. And we encourage you all to take this final opportunity to share a final response. And our prompt that we are going to give you is, what would you like to share to feel complete after this experience this morning? Again, you can open your mic or you can type it in the chat. What can you say that will help you feel complete?
Thank you.
So we have in the chat, nature is healing. We need nature. Being in nature reduces my blood pressure. Taking more time to bathe in nature. Grounded, present, and open. Not in my head so much. Slowing down is energizing. I'm looking forward to the rest of today after taking this time. I'm sending gratitude to the universe for Mother Earth and all the blessings I have and will receive. Making this part of a routine daily and weekly. So the words and feelings that you have shared or maybe haven't shared and you've personally shared them with yourselves, these are gifts to the land. And Robin Wall Kimmerer, you may have read her work, Braiding Sweetgrass, explains that paying attention is a form of reciprocity with the living world. And that's what we want to build, is that reciprocity. So in the spirit of reciprocity, we like to imagine that all of the words and feelings are gathered in our cup of tea. And I'm going to pour some of these. And so all of the words that you have shared, we see as gathered in this cup of tea. In person, we would be gathered around our tea circle, which you can see. You've got ours here. Our tea today is brewed with dandelion root, spearmint, lavender, and passion fruit flowers. These are all plants that can be harvested in your local area. So it's made with plants that we find here in our own area. And you may notice that we have 3 cups, one for each of us and one for the earth. So we envision that all of our thoughts of gratitude and wishes and desires are absorbed in this cup of tea, which is for the earth. And so we pour that first, giving these gifts to the land. And even though we're virtual, we believe that somehow it reaches all of us with our thoughts and our wishes and our gratitude. And I can't reach the edge of the patio without moving and getting up with my knee. That's a little problematic. So, Laura, yeah, there you go.
There we go.
So Laura is sharing that with the land. So all your gifts of gratitude and thoughts of gratitude for the more than human world have been shared with her. And through that, she shares that back with the gift of tea. So following our gifts to the earth, we also then take the gift of the land, which is our own tea. And this is where we include that into our own bodies. We've been gathering her with our senses. Now we include her into our bodies. So whatever you brought to drink, you can offer some back to the earth with a little statement of gratitude, and then together we can drink our tea or water, whatever you brought with you, and complete the process of reciprocity. We're very grateful that you shared this time with us today, and now you can have a snack if you brought one. And we wanted to leave a little bit of time to open up our time together for questions and answers. Normally, if we were sitting around the tea ceremony together, this would be where we would move from the walk into just a conversation. So we ask you just to unmute and jump in and ask us what questions you have. At this point, it can be about our research, what we do, about forest bathing, about our training. We were also going to put in the chat, we've got a couple things here. We've got a link to a Google Drive that has some additional resources for you. And then we also, Laura and I are also offering, we do forest walks with groups. So we have our Instagram page there, as well as our Gmail for our work where we do personal forest walks if you're interested in that as well. But again, like we said, our main purpose is doing them with teachers in schools and with our research. So there's also the link to the Google Drive that has some additional resources for you if you would like. But that that finalizes our walk today, and would love to just chat or answer any questions that you may have.
And feel free to eat your snack
Yeah.
and drink your water or your tea.
I was just wondering if y'all would be willing to share an experience you've had since you started doing these workshops that has been meaningful for the participants in terms of you've really seen a difference made during the course of the workshop.
I can share my own personal one. Early in our training, we, I don't know if it was a texture walk. I really don't even remember which the invitation was. It may have been sitting with a tree. But I felt like I was going through a lot with my job and my family. And I found this worn down tree that was like holding the weight of these new trees as they were growing, and using it as a support system to grow and to continue to thrive. And I really emotionally resonated with that tree, and the fact like that's what I feel like I'm doing. I feel like I'm carrying the weight of so many others, and that it was wearing me down, but that it was benefiting some as they were able to grow and strengthen and emerge healthy and whole. And so that was actually a very emotional, that was probably 3 or 4 walks in, but that was a personally a very emotional connection and kind of realization that I had with that invitation.
I teach child development, and for the final project, they have a choice of different things to research and engage in. And so studying the benefits of nature and well-being is one of those. So usually about 1/3 of the students choose that. And after they look at the research, they actually have to come up with a plan for engaging in nature themselves. And it's really was refreshing, especially this last year during the pandemic, the fall and the spring semester, to read and hear the students that chose this. Some of them would choose to go walk for so much time. Some of them would just choose to sit or engage or go, like some of them went on a 3-day camping trip. And just to have them express how much that helped them. And it helped them, I think, because it was an assignment, so they didn't feel guilty spending time doing it. They felt like they had permission to do that. And again, this is not for everyone. And there are many different ways to spend time in nature. But it was just really nice to feel like we could do, I think as you know, as teachers this year, we felt very limited in how we could help our students and support them. We can, give them extensions on assignments, that we can give them extra feedback on work and all of those things. But as far as helping them really manage anxiety, depression, and the different things that were going on, that felt like, that felt meaningful to me. And so that was something that I'm glad I did and offered to them. And we're actually going to, that's kind of the underlying purpose for a lot of a new course we're offering in the fall for undergraduates. It's called the Natural Environment and Wellbeing. And we hoped we would have 12 sign up, and we had, we opened it, we put a cap of 20 on the class. We had 20 sign up and 33 on the wait list.
But we increased it
So,
to 30.
so then we increased it to 30, which I think we're kind of crazy. So because our commitment is 50% of the time we're spending time in nature. We're going out and we're taking them out. We're doing some forest therapy walks. We're doing some traditional hikes. We're doing lots of different things while they learn about the research and experience the things themselves. So we hope this is meaningful to them. But Courtney's right that our first idea was to, we can't make teaching less stressful, but we can help hopefully teach people and engage in ways to help all of us lower some of our stress levels. Any other questions or comments, or we'd love to hear how you incorporate nature into your life or your classroom.
This is Larry Joe. I'm working with a middle school teacher that's teaching 8th graders in a mindfulness mindset as they go through the year. They're in a pretty low income area and have some real issues at home. And I can see this as we've built a garden on their campus as a way to get them out of the classroom and just breathe, just open up their space and keep a safe place.
That sounds wonderful. I love that. Diana has a question about a favorite book used to plan for young children. And I don't know if Amanda feels comfortable sharing. Amanda has a wealth of experience in this area, especially with young children. One of the books we're using is Richard Lou's Last Child in the Woods, which is it's a little dated, but it has some great information in it. But Amanda, I don't know if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with Diana.
Sure. So there's so many, but I think Richard Lou's is great. Also, Balanced and Barefoot is great. How to Raise a Wild Child is another good one. There's actually one that I kept thinking about as I was walking around the area that's actually a children's book. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's called The Little Things. I can probably find it and share it, but it's a children's book, and it's about a little girl who, the Coyote Guide to Connecting with Nature is perfect. There's so many. A little is about a girl who walks through her neighborhood and notices the little beautiful things. Tiny. I'll find it while you guys are talking, and I'll share it in the chat. But it's about a little girl who walks through her neighborhood and finds little tiny things. So it just a reminder, as one of the invitations was, that just to stop and notice things in your environment kind of grounds you in the present moment, almost as a form of mindfulness. So I can share that if you're thinking about children's books as well.
I've been, I'm hoping you can still hear me because we're using just Laura's audio so that we don't get feedback. But I've got a huge box. I've just been scouring used bookstores and everything I can find on things that are related. So I'm trying to create a good list of children's books specifically. But looking at planning for young children, you know, like Growing Up Wild, those are all great resources. PLT is kind of our childhood version for the planning piece of it. And then that's where Laura and I are learning to balance this, because there's planning.
Courtney, we lost you.
Space, which is the body. So, you know, kind of balancing that line on there's outdoor education, which is equally important, but then there's also that piece of not feeling like you always have to be doing something. That permission to sit and just notice with all of your senses is just as valuable and a necessary experience for young children as well. Oh, good. Genuine said they just provided us on a reading list. I'll check that out too.
Yeah, they just posted it this morning, so perfect timing.
I think our department's getting a little bit fed up with us trying ordering books. We're ordering them faster than we can possibly read them. But that's one thing we really liked about the forest-fitting piece, is that it doesn't have to be the academic and the cognitive piece. And when I used, before I knew what I was doing, before we had done the training, I did something similar to a spit spot with my first year students and had them journal. And the first 4 weeks, they were really ticked off about it. Like, I hate this. This is such a waste of time. I can't believe I've got other stuff to be doing. And then about week 5, it started to shift. It's like, oh, I'm noticing things. And then it got to be, I'm so glad you're forcing me to do this. But then I heard from a lot of them after that too, that, you know, even after the assignment was over, they continued to go back and visit that spot, like before their final exam or before they were going into a stressful situation. They would go back and revisit that spot because they physically had felt that it does lower their blood pressure. You know, those cortisol hormones are decreased. So, you know, it's almost like they needed permission to sit still, and this kind of provides that time and space for that to happen.
And we just want to, well, thank you for joining us today in this. We want to share that this is highly modified, doing a virtual walk. So it's definitely better than nothing. I will for sure always say that, but the in-person walks are just, I think they're special. It provides a much deeper experience, usually, not for everyone, but deeper. So if you have an opportunity to go on an in-person walk, now, especially now that the pandemic is it's more under control. And by the way, just to let you know, Courtney and I are both fully vaccinated, sitting here next to each other. And we did have to be very careful this year in doing things, but an in-person walk is really nice, and I think can really benefit you a lot. And as we said, it's a practice. So just engaging in it, kind of like you would go to a yoga class, or you would go to a workout class, or you would go to any other thing. The more you do it, the more beneficial it can be for you.